In exactly 7 days, in 1 week, we are going to experience probably one of the most biggest and probably the most controversial trials of the century. No, we're not talking about Casey Anthony, and no, we're not talking about OJ. We are talking about California versus Conrad Murray, and the case is basically boiled down to probably the most iconic man of our time, which is the death of Michael Jackson. Today we're going to talk about why Conrad Murray is innocent. You know, this is a very complicated video to do or to start on, because I know that everybody's still boiled up about Casey Anthony. Let's leave Casey Anthony out of this for a minute, and we're going to talk about this particular case, because I don't want to start mixing cases up, and I'm going to leave my feelings for Casey on the side, because I already knew she was innocent, and I'm glad that she got freed. This time I'm going to talk about why Conrad Murray is innocent. I looked over the facts of the prosecution's case, and they got a pretty interesting case that they're working on. Interesting, I say, pretty powerful stuff against them. Some of the stuff I read on Conrad Murray is the controversy of the huge delay in the 911 calls, no continuous oxygen because of how Michael Jackson died. For those, Michael Jackson was fed a highly dose of propofol, and the controversy is that Conrad Murray gave a large dose to Michael Jackson. The question is, did Michael Jackson die from this high doses of propofol, or was he on something else that caused his heart attack? Because he later died in the hospital and he was pronounced dead. So the case that's against Conrad Murray is, stuff like he didn't have a CPR. He didn't do CPR in the bed with no backboard. He had no incubation, no medical staff to help Michael. He didn't have a continuous BP monitor. He didn't have, he gave an IV cocktail that was given by a physician. I'm reading this list of things, and one of the most powerful cases against them is the idea that Conrad Murray is a cardiologist, and he's not qualified to give a high dosage of propofol that's only given to people who are anesthesiologists. Basically the issue it boils down to is, who is accountable for the death of the King of Pop? Now, this is why I'm going to tell you why he's innocent of all these charges. It is true that a lot of the stuff that the prosecution is saying is a big problem for Conrad Murray, but understand this. I have seen cases like this. We have seen this in the Casey Anthony case, where they boil all this down to, because you got to understand what Conrad Murray was doing with Michael. Michael hated the hospital. He did not want a big medical staff. He didn't want nobody to really know Michael's personal business, because had he had been in the hospital, they would have did a blood test on him and found out that he was doing more than just propofol. They would have found extra drugs that was in his system that he probably was addicted to, and he didn't want that to get out. I understand why there was no medical staff in Michael's possession, why a lot of people are infuriated by the idea that this man was killed. But you got to understand this. If you are in Conrad's position and your patient is one of the most iconic figures in music, or this greatest legend of our time, wouldn't you be nervous if you found out that the man that just had a heart attack died, and you knew that this was going to be a problem? It's not like this is not just some ordinary poor patient. This is a man who is a legend. And when you're dealing with a legend, you got to understand that a legend has rules and regulations. You got to understand that he did not want a medical staff. Maybe Conrad Murray offered some of these medical tools, and Michael said he didn't want that. Maybe Michael's whole thing was that, you know what, I just want Conrad Murray, and I want him to understand that whatever I'm paying him for, he has to do what I'm saying. When they go and present this to the court, because the lawyer for Conrad Murray looks like he's too nervous. He's got to stop being so nervous, because that is what the prosecution is going to scream all day. That Conrad Murray was a cardiologist. How could a cardiologist give this high doses of propofol to someone who's not an anesthesiologist? So you got to understand that this is a very big problem for Conrad. But I'm going to say this, though. We have been through this before. We've seen this in the Casey Anthony case, where all this nonsense come out about, well, he didn't have a medical staff and he didn't have a monitor, and he gave him an IV cocktail that's given by physicians and all this bullshit stuff. But let me tell you this. In this particular instance, if the defense really wanted to be low, he can get off tomorrow morning by attacking Michael's character on just what type of person this man was. He can go out to the world and say, you know, world, because Conrad has got to take the stand. That's number one he has to do. He has to take the stand, and he has to tell the world what happened, because the jury is not going to listen to a bunch of doctors and a bunch of gossipy stuff like they did with Casey. This time, Conrad, because no one can back the story up except Conrad, he's got to go on the stand, and basically he's got to, first of all, cut down that little Jamaican or Haitian accent he's got, or whatever the hell it is, because don't go in there saying I didn't kill him, because you know he is dead and he died under your care. You don't want to go in like that. You want to go on the stand and say, you know something, I do admit that as a cardiologist, I was not qualified to give this high doses of propofol to this legendary performer. But under his care, Michael was very specific, and he was very controlling, and he just gave me specific orders that whatever he wants, he had to have. That's what people will see, because then you'll see the behind the scenes of what this legend was really like. You got to be able to tell the story of what Michael was like, because remember, what the person's image on the outside is a little different than behind closed doors. Conrad has to get on the stand and basically explain what was it like on a day-to-day basis working with a patient called Michael Jackson. You know, a lot of people are going to attack him for his credibility and his inability to perform things that he wasn't able to perform. But the fact of the matter is that this man will be found not guilty, because as long as he goes on the stand and tells the story that, you know something, all the mistakes that the prosecution is making, admit them. You know, admit that, you know what, there was a huge delay in phone calls because I was nervous, and you know something, I wasn't qualified to give high doses of propofol. And yes, you know what, when I tried to apply it at incubation, Michael was very persistent in what he didn't want. You have to tell the world that, you know something, what Michael wanted is exactly what he paid for. You gotta understand, people make it sound like in the celebrity world, you know, there is no, it's the same way as a regular hospital. No, it's not. In the celebrity world, money talks, and whatever you pay for is what you're getting. You know, if you pay for a private doctor, you know something, behind the scenes, that doctor, you're giving him what, almost $200,000 to $300,000 a month. Trust me, he almost got $1 million within a couple of months. Trust me on this. He did exactly what Michael told him, because that's what Michael paid for. And you know something else too, the thing that I find fascinating about this case is that they're going to try to turn this into a big forensic case, and a big case more about the qualifications of how much propofol can a person take. Did he take a lot? Did he administer himself? But the thing that is going to win Conrad over is this. He has to go on the stand, tell exactly what Michael was like. Talk about this legend as a human being. Talk about the idea that Michael was very controlling. Michael had to have prescriptions because he was in pain because of the incident that happened with the fire with his hair. Talk about his drug problem, but not talk about it in a disrespectful way. Just talk about it by the way of what it's like day to day. Talk about how the family did not saw the signs but choose to ignore it. You know, you can go, you know it is, but definitely talk about what happened that day. Talk about it, because you know something, Conrad, you can beat this, but you know something, I think Conrad is more worried about his medical license. And the thing about with your medical license is that you're going to be able to lose everything if this goes into guilty. You're found guilty, your practice is gone. Your practice is on hold because right now you're on trial. And you know, and I don't know if you're found guilty, does he automatically loses his license and then has to go, then it doesn't have to go to a medical board. I don't know if he's found not guilty and he still has to go to a medical board. There's a lot of things that are behind the scenes that a lot of people want to know. But the most important thing of all is that go on the stand, Conrad, because you know something, you are going to be found not guilty of these charges. The question about your medical license, you might be found guilty of that. I think you might lose your medical license, and you're going to have to accept the fact that if you do lose it, your future is over. And you know something, that's worse than a death sentence itself. And again, when we're dealing with this particular trial, we're not dealing with just, you know, Casey Anthony now. We are dealing where people are being coerced by Nancy Grace and the media, and about all, you know, Nancy Grace feeding information and coercing her audience for ratings. Now we're talking about celebrity worship. This is a little different because people who are fans of Michael are already obsessed with him. They worship him. They dress like him, dance like him, talk like him. Now we're dealing with fanatic fans who are so interested in this case, and just like what they did in the 2005 Michael Jackson molestation trial, where they were at the court every day and they threw doves in the air. This time, if there isn't justice for Michael, I think fans will either riot, they will be pissed off, because celebrity worship in our country and in our culture is so amazing to see, where people love their stars. They love their Keanu Reeves, and they love their Michael Jacksons and their Denzel Washingtons, and you know, their basketball players and political stars. They love people who are icons to them, and they worship them, and they feel like, you know what, it's their celebrity heroes. But people don't understand, they're just human beings like anybody else. So in conclusion, I will say this, that he will be found, you know something, a lot of this stuff that's happening to Conrad Murray, this is what, you know what it is, this is what happens when a good man who helps the poor, did surgeries for free, helped the king of pop, and basically Michael Jackson ruined his life in a very ironic way. So, you know, Conrad, I believe in your innocence. You know, I'm going with you on a, you know, I'm going with a not guilty verdict with you, but your medical license, I'm sorry, you're gonna lose it. I hope you don't lose it, but you know something, you will, because, you know, one thing about the medical board, they will not let you forget. So, you know, on Tuesday at 11 a.m. on September 27th, that's when we were going to find out exactly what happened the day the death of Michael Jackson. So, you know, good luck, Conrad, and tell your lawyer, don't be so damn nervous. And for the most part, believe me, I know all the stuff about that's against you on the facts of the case are very strong, but you know something, while people are looking for accountability, they need to see that, you know something, this is not just about accountability, this is about everybody was wrong here. Michael Jackson, if you're going to talk about accountability, you got to blame everyone that was involved. If you're blaming Conrad, blame Michael, blame the family, blame his guards. Everybody was involved in this situation for why we lost one of the greatest legends of our time. So use your mind, it's your best weapon. I will talk about the trial on and off, but for the most part, I will talk to you all again when the verdict comes out, and you take care of yourself. And remember, again, use your mind. It's your best weapon.